Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Bowtie Sales Guys. I am Mike Papacoda here with my very good friend, Robb Ryerse. We've been gone for 2 weeks, but we are excited to be back to start talking about sales again because it's one of our favorite topics to cover. So let me go ahead and bring in Robb. Robb, how you been, friend?
I'm doing well, Mike. I have not gone nearly as far in the world as you have gone since the last time we were together. You have, been to both coasts just about, right?
Yeah, I went to we went to the Pacific Northwest, which was beautiful. I'd never been there before. It was on my bucket list. Got to see the Oregon coastline and wine country, and then I took my son to on a last minute trip to Orlando. Went to Universal and hung by the pool, and I got to say, man, it's nice to be fully vaccinated and be around other people that are vaccinated and.
Yeah.
The airlines don't care anymore. I mean, you still got to wear your mask, but they pack the planes. And I'm like, well, at least I'm vaccinated. So
Yeah.
it is nice to begin to return to somewhat of a normal life, so to speak. So,
Yeah. Well, I've been staying close to home, enjoying the work that's been done at our house. As we've talked about here on the podcast, we had solar panels put on. They are now installed.
nice.
We're just waiting for the inspector to come now and make sure that everything is correct and turn them on. So, and with AC, going on now because it is
Yeah.
8,000 degrees here this week in Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's a good time to cut into my energy bills a bit. But I've just
Yes.
been sitting on the back porch enjoying just the quiet of being home. My eldest child is home from college
Very nice.
to help with a little bit of the childcare around the house, which is great. And so we're just kind of enjoying easing into summer. They say, Mike, that in sales, and in media sales in particular, that the rough months are the J months of January, June, and July. And so
Yeah.
now is as good a time as any for us to bring our 30 plus years of experience in sales to bear to help folks that are out there trying to make sales, trying to do their best in the sales game. We want to be your friends, in your corner, rooting for you. And so what we're going to do today is talk about kind of a big idea. Want to talk about how to relate to your sales manager, and then we're going to have a tip that salespeople can implement today, and it's something that they can do today to make themselves more effective as salespeople. And so we'll be sharing that near the end. So Mike, you and I have both been sales managers, and you and I have both had sales managers.
Yeah.
You have, like me, I can look back at my career and say, man, I had some really good sales managers. Some people that taught me a whole lot of stuff and helped me be better. And then I had some that I wouldn't necessarily characterize as good sales managers.
We still learn from them, right? But
Yeah.
what not to do.
Exactly. And then I can look back at my own career and see times where I think I was pretty effective at being a sales manager and made my salespeople better. And other times, maybe not so much. And I, fell down a bit. I don't know. Do you have a sense of, what your experience has been like, both as a sales manager and relating to sales managers?
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, I think you framed it up perfect. I mean, there are managers that you learn from, whether they're good or bad. I mean, there's always a learning opportunity, but the ones that are good, the great ones, help you to grow. They believe in you, they inspire you, they push you. And then on the flip side, you have those that are really micromanagers that don't trust you and are always, following up with you and want to know where you are every second of the day. And you learn from them, in terms of a salesperson. And so when I moved into that sales manager role, I took the good and I took the bad and I tried to incorporate it into my own leadership style. And I think, Robb, there was, I don't know how many years ago was it? 5, 6, 7 years ago, you wrote an article about things I wish my sales manager knew. And it was so impactful because I think it spoke for a lot of sales professionals and things that they really wish that their sales manager knew.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that in a minute and kind of talk down through some of those ideas that are still true today. I'm curious though about your experience as a sales manager, because you've been one more recently than I have. I'm curious kind of what your philosophy of being a sales manager was. Like what was there any kind of guiding principle or philosophy that really shaped how you led your team?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about relationships. And I don't think it's just about the sales manager and the salesperson relationship, but it's a friendship relations, a marriage relationship. And it works on a system of debits and credits. And I'm not talking about where you write down every little good thing someone does or every bad thing they do, but relationships take work. And you have to make deposits into those relationships. So as a sales manager, my philosophy was I need to make deposits into the people that I am leading, helping them to grow, helping them to reach their dreams, helping to reach their goals. And so I was constantly trying to make deposits so that when it came time where I needed their help as a collective group, I had already made those deposits because it's very difficult to ask a group of people to do something for you when you've done absolutely nothing to earn the right to ask for that help. And I think one of the things we'll probably talk about is your number's not my number. A sales manager's got a number, but a salesperson's got a different number. And as a sales rep, your number's not my number. I don't really care that much about it. Now, if you've taken the time to build that relationship and make those deposits, well, when it comes time for you needing a little bit extra for me to go above and beyond because I've already hit my goal, sure, I'll step up and do that for you. But if you've not done any deposits into our relationship, kind of on your own.
Yeah. That is an excellent point. Well, listen, let's jump in and talk about some of these things that I think salespeople wish that their sales managers would remember. These are things that they probably know, but it's something that in the daily grind, in the hustle and bustle of trying to close sales and hit quotas and all of those things, it's easy for sales managers to forget. And I think it's important for salespeople to remember that, that stuff tends to flow downstream, and if it feels like your sales manager is kind of piling on, it's probably because, she's been piled on by somebody above her. And it's just, so, we want to talk about these things that we wish sales managers would remember, but we want to do so with, enough empathy to realize that they're human beings too, right?
They've got a boss, right?
Yes.
They've got goals they have to reach. So, there's a reason why they're asking for things. It's just a matter of how do you ask for it? How do you position it?
Yeah. So here's the first thing I wish the sales managers would remember. And it's this. Sell me, don't tell me.
Yep.
Sell me, don't tell me. Now, the reality is that most sales managers, if not all sales managers, were once really successful salespeople. That's how they got the job, right? Like they were good at selling that product. And so when, the position came open, they got promoted. Like you remember the picture of Michael Scott with the mullet and the fanny pack, because he was a good salesman of paper for Dunder Mifflin. He got, promoted to being the sales manager at the office in Scranton. That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
But I think what often happens is that sales managers don't remember what got them there. And what got them there was being able to sell. And frankly, their customers now as sales managers are their sales people. Their customers are their team. They need a team who buys into the products that they're selling, the ideas that they have, and believes in it. And so sales managers need to sell their salespeople on what they believe, on what they're selling, so that their salespeople believe in it and will go out and sell it with all their hearts, rather than just telling them, hey, you have to do this. Hey, this is the way it is. Like, no. Don't just tell me. Then I'm not emotionally invested in it at all. But if you sell me on it, then I'll believe in it and I'll go hard and I'll win because I believe in it.
Right. And Rob, one of the funny story is I had a sales manager who hated when in our sales meeting I would start asking questions.
I was hoping you were going to tell this story.
Basically objections to the product that he was selling, because listen, I'm going to have to go out and sell this. And I know my customers are going to ask me questions about holes that I have poked into the product or the solution. And so in the meetings, in our sales meetings, I would always say, well, what about this? And what about that? And how do we overcome this? And, he would begrudgingly answer the question, but then he would pull me aside and say, hey, listen, in the sales meeting, could you not do that? He said, could you not ask questions like that? Because I need everybody to buy in, and your questions are putting doubts in their head. And I'm like, dude, if I have the doubts, they have the doubts. They just don't want to step up and say, hey, wait a minute, can we talk a little bit about this? Yep. And so I think it plays right into your theme here, which is sell me and then overcome the objections that I, as the salesperson, have, because they are true objections that the customer is probably going to bring up. So make us equipped as salespeople to be ready and anticipate those questions ahead of time. But that was a big deal.
Absolutely. Don't, like dance with the one who brung you. You got to this job because you're a good salesperson. Now don't turn into a dictator that's simply telling people what to do. Continue to sell them, because when you do, and it's helping them to believe in the product, overcoming objections, understanding what motivates them, all of those things. If sales managers saw their salespeople as customers, as clients, they would do a much better job of getting them on board, so that then salespeople can be even more effective. So another idea, another thing that I think it's important for sales managers to remember, and you touched on this a little bit ago, Mike, remember that your number is not the one that matters most to me. Talk about this a little bit, Mike.
Well, listen, you hired me to do a job. You gave me a budget. You said, this is the budget that you need to hit. If you hit this budget, you're going to get paid this amount. And I have based my budget at home, my family's budget, on doing that job. And I'm sorry that if we come into a sales meeting and you're missing your number, but I'm hitting mine, I don't have a ton of empathy for you that I'm going to just go out and kill myself to help you to hit your number, because that's not my number. I have a number. You've got 6 other people. Get them to hit their number too. Now, I say that to go back to, listen, if you have made those investments in me and those deposits in me, I do feel like I owe you a little bit, that I need to try and help you to hit that number. But you need to always remember that your number is not my number. And so when you come into a sales meeting, you're like, all right, everybody, we got to hit this big number. You need to hit the big number. Now, you have to hit the big number, certainly, and I want to help you get there, and I'm going to do my part. But where I struggle, Rob, and maybe you've seen this too, is when managers rely solely on the 1 or 2 or 3 people that are absolutely knocking it out of the park to help them get over or reach their number, when there's 5 or 6 other people that need to be lifted so that the whole team is contributing.
Yeah. I had a situation a few years back where there was 2 aspects of kind of our overall numbers, that in a team of 10 people, my production alone accounted for, in one category, it was 33%, and the other category was 35% of the total production of the entire team, in 2 different categories, one being new business and then one being, one of the products that we sold. And when you've got 10 people, and one person is producing a third or more of the production, you've got a problem. Now, it was great for me because I was just, knocking it out of the park. I was on an amazing hot streak, one like I've rarely been on in my career, and it was a lot of fun for me, but it was miserable for everybody else. And I do feel that pressure. I felt that pressure at times when, the sales manager would come to me and would say, "Hey, I know you're doing really well, but I need you to like stretch a little bit more to make up the difference." And it was a recipe for resentment because I was like, man, I'm already doing the very best I can, and you're asking me to do more because some other people aren't pulling their weight. And so, I think this is a matter of sales managers need to understand what motivates their salespeople and tap into that. And frankly, I don't know if I have ever seen salespeople that are motivated by, the sales manager's number. Like it's fun when like you hit it and your store is the leading store in your district, or your district is the leading district in the state, or your state is the leading state in the country. Like that's fun, but that doesn't like pay the bills. What pays the bills is salesperson hitting their own number. So if the sales manager wants to get there, they've got to unlock something inside their salespeople that's different than just, well, I've got to hit this number.
Right. Yeah, there's got to be an incentive for the team. And a lot of the things that I would do is, if we hit the number, we'd have a half day off. Or one time we went to the horse race. We got a limo and we took it up to Hot Springs. And so there was something in it for the group if everybody were to kind of lift up. Even the people that were at their number, if they would contribute just a little bit more, there was an incentive, a reward for them at the end, because like you said, it's not just enough to say, well, I need to hit my number and you guys need to go out and do it, or you as a team need to go out and do it. Because frankly, most of the time the people on the team are worried about number one, which is them and themselves.
Yeah. Another thing that I wish sales managers would remember, and that is that remember that all we really want is for there to be one set of rules that everybody plays by.
Right.
Now listen, even as I say that, I understand that seniority matters, right? Like if somebody's been around for a while and there's deep relationships there, that you treat that person differently than you treat like the newbie who just arrived on the scene. You get that. I understand too that there are special circumstances that come up, that there are unique things that happen that, require you to bend the rules for somebody. And that's totally understandable. On a day-to-day basis, the ins and outs of just normal business, when people are playing by different rules, when you have expectations for one person or one group of people that are different from the expectations that you have for others, it can be really disconcerting and it can be really discouraging. Mike, have you ever worked on a sales team where it felt like somebody was the sales manager's favorite?
Oh yeah, I've been on multiple. And I think when that happens, while it's good for the person who's the favorite and the sales manager, trust me, sales managers, the rest of your team is talking about it.
Yeah.
They are talking about it a lot. And it is causing, like you said, divisiveness and discord amongst the team. And if you want to hit that number, well, you better ask your favorite, because the rest of the team is like, well, we're not the favorite.
Yep.
So that sales manager's on their own. And it really is, you have to be very careful when you have favorites, and not just favorites, but they are granted, like you said, special privileges and special requests and things that are way outside of the ordinary, and not just once in a while, but on a very consistent basis. And your teams talk about that. And I can just tell you, it definitely is a negative impact when your team is off talking about you as the salesperson and your favorite.
Yep, absolutely. And, that really kind of leads into the last thing that I wanted to mention that I wish sales managers would remember, and that is that you impact morale. I once had a sales manager say to me and to our team, morale is not his responsibility. And I was dumbfounded by that, having served as a sales manager and knew that how I treated people impacted the morale of the team, how I talked and interacted, like all of that had an impact on the mood of the team. For this sales manager to just let himself off the hook when it comes to morale, what it was an indication to me. It was an indication to me that he knew morale wasn't good and he didn't know how to fix it. Yeah. And so he was
exactly.
And he was just saying like, well, morale doesn't, I'm not responsible for that. And there's there's kind of a subtle thing with this where the sales manager like feels like he can act any way he wants to, and
right.
and talk to people any way he wants to, treat people any way he wants to, and there's no consequences or repercussions for that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Morale, culture, I think those two kind of go hand in hand. And it is the responsibility of the sales manager to create a culture, at least on their team. Now, if you're dealing with multiple teams where there's 3 or 4 sales managers, it's hard to control the culture and the morale of all of those teams. And I think that goes into your, general sales manager, VPs. But on your team as a sales manager, it is your job to cultivate a positive culture, to cultivate the morale. And I think you brought up a lot of points, in the way that you talk to your salespeople is going to reflect in the way that they talk to their customers and that they talk to each other, which is critical. Because if you have a team of people that are constantly rude to each other and backstabbers and really don't care about the feelings of the people on your team, as a sales leader, you're never going to be able to achieve the numbers that you want to achieve because you haven't created the right culture on your team. So that, I think that's a key point.
Yeah. Mike, I worked for you. You were my sales manager for a brief period of time, which is
before you decided to run off and run for Congress.
I was already running for Congress, but that's a whole other story.
Very good. Very true. Very true.
And I say this without any kind of exaggeration. You are so good as a sales manager at creating a positive culture amongst the team. And salespeople, those who are long time at the company, who predated you, those who were new, those who were really excelling, those who weren't, those who were, closer to being senior citizens and nearing retirement, and those who were just getting started in their career right out of college. Like the whole spectrum of people had just so positive about working for you, and the morale was so very good. Are there any tips, and are there any things that, beyond what we've already talked about, that you would say, hey, this is something sales managers need to do because it really makes a difference with creating a culture?
Well, I think you need to have a genuine care for the people that you are leading.
Yeah.
And that it has to be genuine. They need to know without a doubt that Mike cares about me, cares about my family, he cares about my future, my success, and that he is willing to do whatever it takes. He's going to fight for me. He's going to be there to back me up. Whether I make a mistake or I'm doing something good, he's going to be there for me. And that happens over time. You build that trust. But my teams, I hope, always knew that I had their best interest at heart. And there were times when I would have to go to battle for them with my boss, with my boss's boss, because things weren't right. And they knew that I would stick my neck out and say what needed to be said on their behalf, and see if we couldn't come up with a solution that was right for them. And I think over the course of the time that I work with them, hopefully they all felt like he cares. And I think that's the key. When your people know that your manager cares, Rob, they will go through walls for you. They'll go over mountains for you because, and it goes back to those deposits. And it's not, again, you're not keeping a ledger. You're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. Because I always used to feel like at some of my jobs, I was just a number. And that when the company wanted to get rid of me, whether I was doing well or I was doing poorly, they were going to get rid of me. Didn't matter. Like that, you got a family, tough luck, we're downsizing, you're out of here. And I didn't want my people to feel like they were a number. I wanted to feel like they were a person and a part of a community and a family.
Yeah, really great stuff. Well, listen, let's give everybody a tip for today. As you are kind of working your way through being effective as a salesperson, here's something you can do today. And today's tip is to use Siri. Now, anytime I ever talk about Siri, I love to tell the story of the time that I was watching the movie Her with my wife. And if you remember the movie Her, Scarlett Johansson voices an operating system, that is, and the movie is set in the future when, the operating system, eventually gains its, own intelligence and, moves on. And it's a movie about a guy who falls in love with his operating system, who falls in love with Siri. And so we're about halfway through the movie. Vanessa and I are watching it. We're about halfway through the movie. And she turns to me and she says, I don't think I'm using Siri up to her full potential. This movie's set in the future, right? Siri can't actually do all of the stuff that Scarlett Johansson is doing in this movie. But Siri can do so much for us now, and we have this resource that's in our pockets that I think salespeople really, really need to use. So, for instance, let me give you a couple of examples of these are just super simple things, just absurdly simple things. You're driving around, and I used to do this when I was in the advertising world, and I would see a new business that would pop up. Speaking of Siri, my phone just beeped, I would see a new business that had opened, or I would see a billboard for a company that I had never seen advertised before. And I'm driving, so I can't grab a piece of paper. So I would grab my phone and I would say, "Hey Siri, add XYZ company to my prospect list." And I had created a list in reminders, and Siri would add that name to my prospect list. And then when I would get back to the office, all of those would be right there, and I could go through them and do the research I needed to do. How many times you've had that experience where you've been out and about, you've seen something, and you're racking your brain. You're going, "Oh, what was it again that we were gonna do?" What was it I was gonna look up? And just letting Siri remind you of those, and creating a list and saying, it's Saturday and you're at your kid's baseball game, and you see something that there's somebody who's a prospect for your business. It's not the right time to talk to him now. "Hey Siri, add so and so to my prospect list," and you can.
Siri's trying to get
Siri on my iPad just is flashing at me right now. But that is one of those things that you absolutely can do. You can put into practice right now. So prospecting is one way. Another one is just reminders. I mean, how often do we just flat out forget what we need to do? And so you walk out of a meeting and you say, hey Siri, remind me at 11 a.m. tomorrow to call such and such. Hey Siri, remind me at 4 p.m. on Thursday that I need to email this person. Those things that, like, in the busyness of life, you can't be expected to remember all of it. You've got a supercomputer in your pocket. Use her to that fullest advantage.
Yeah, I agree, Rob. Both of those tips are ones that you taught me, the driving around and prospects. Hey, remind me to call so-and-so, or I love the time one. It's remind me to call Rob at 4:00. Remind me to call this business at 3:30 or whenever that time would be. Especially, I love the example on the weekends where, hey, this person's a potential prospect, but now's not the time to talk business. If I don't tell Siri to do it, though, the chances of me remembering are pretty slim because we still got Saturday night and Sunday to go. So really great tip.
And especially, that reminder with long-term prospects as well. When somebody says, hey, I'm interested, but I can't, until 2 months from now. You walk out the door and you say, hey, Siri, remind me in 2 months to call this person. It's that stuff that, just over time, the attrition of life, you just don't keep it in your head. And exactly. You can let Siri do all of that for you. It is such a great resource that I'm really afraid there's a lot of folks out there that aren't taking advantage of it.
I think it's a great tip, and hopefully they will start using it today.
Yeah, very good. Well, listen, we want to thank everybody for listening in, whether you're watching on Facebook Live or on YouTube, or you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or Spotify or any of those places. We encourage you to give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a positive review. If you want to be in touch with us, the best place to do that is the Bowtie Sales Guy page on Facebook. And you can find us there. Just look for Bowtie Sales Guy, and you can find us there. And we would love to connect with you. Mike, any final words for today to the folks?
No, just start using Siri. Let her help you do your job even better.
She might be more helpful than your sales manager.
Maybe.
Bye-bye, everybody.